American history that most people today wouldn't even believe it happened if it were told to them directly. A secret so carefully buried that official records have vanished, witnesses disappeared, and yet its echoes still ripple quietly beneath the surface of everything we think we know about the United States. You're about to hear a story that vanished without a trace, a story that most history books won't touch, but one that may just make you question what you've been taught about this country. It all begins in the early 1940s, a time when America was gripped by global conflict and the shadow of an even greater unknown. While the world focused on battles overseas, behind closed doors, a series of experiments and events unfolded that would eventually leave no record, no proof, and no explanation. The people involved, the documents that should have existed, even the towns and locations associated with the events all wiped clean from the official story. Yet, if you dig carefully, the whispers of this secret are still there, hidden in personal letters, obscure newspaper mentions, and the occasional diary entry that survived. Our story focuses on a place that, at first glance, seems completely ordinary. It's a small town in the Midwest, a town that could have been any American town. Quiet streets, a church steeple that rose above the rooftops, children playing in the yards. But beneath that ordinary surface, a series of experiments had taken place, experiments that were part of a much larger, highly classified program. Some say it was meant to test the limits of human endurance, others whisper it was about influencing behavior on a scale no one could fully understand. Whatever the truth, the program was so secretive that all evidence of its existence was erased shortly after it concluded. You might be wondering why this vanished entirely. How could a secret so massive simply disappear? Well, that's part of the mystery. The people who participated were sworn to secrecy, many under threat of losing their freedom or worse. Files that should have existed were either shredded, burned, or moved into hidden vaults. Local authorities were pressured to say nothing, and federal agencies went to extraordinary lengths to ensure that no trace remained. But as often happens, secrets that try to hide in the shadows eventually leave subtle marks, clues that, if pieced together, reveal a startling story. One of the few surviving threads comes from the testimony of a man named Harold Jenkins. Jenkins worked for the government in a minor role, but he had access to documents no one outside his office should have seen. In private letters sent decades later to a historian he trusted, Jenkins described unusual experiments conducted on volunteers. Some were said to last weeks without proper rest or exposure to controlled stressors that would today be considered extreme. The purpose, according to him, was to test the boundaries of human perception and response under pressure, though the real goals were always shrouded in layers of obfuscation. The volunteers themselves were a curious mix: local townspeople, a few recruited scientists, and even some individuals who appear to have been coerced or misled. After their participation, most returned to normal life, but some carried scars, psychological and physical, that would never fully heal. And then, inexplicably, they were removed from records. Census rolls, employment documents, even family stories, their participation became a blank page in history, as if they had never existed in that context at all. You have to imagine the tension of that time. The world was at war, the stakes were unimaginably high, and in many ways, the American government was experimenting with the limits of secrecy itself. What makes this story so gripping is not just the nature of the experiments, but the lengths to which institutions went to erase them. Imagine decades later, historians combing through files, finding shredded pages that hint at what occurred but never give a full picture. It's a story of vanished evidence, of people erased from the narrative, and of secrets so deep that even today, their consequences ripple quietly in ways most Americans never suspect. There's also a small-town connection that adds to the intrigue. Residents reported strange occurrences, unexplained lights in the night sky, unusual personnel movements, and sudden departures of people who had lived there for years. Locals whispered about the government taking special interest in certain families. Most dismissed these stories at the time, chalking them up to wartime paranoia. But when paired with the letters, the diaries, and the occasional photograph that survived, a pattern emerges: something extraordinary happened there, and someone made absolutely certain that no official record would remain. One story that survives comes from a former volunteer, who asked to remain anonymous until shortly before his death. He described a room where time seemed to bend, a chamber of carefully controlled environments, where small but significant alterations to surroundings tested not only human endurance but perception, memory, and even decision-making. He said he and the others were monitored constantly, and every reaction meticulously recorded, but all documentation was classified, then destroyed. For him, it wasn't just about being a secret, it was about being erased, as though the event never happened. And here's where it gets even more haunting. In the aftermath, those involved noticed something strange. Official histories of the town omitted years entirely. Buildings that had existed were gone from maps. Photographs were missing from family albums, and sometimes even local newspapers had large gaps in their archives. It wasn't just the government removing traces, it was as though reality itself had been subtly rewritten to remove any hint that the secret had ever occurred. Over time, this story has inspired historians, writers, and amateur researchers. Some see it as proof that the American government experimented with human behavior in ways that would now be considered unethical. Others view it as a cautionary tale about the power of secrecy, and how even small towns can become the site of monumental events that vanish from public knowledge. Whatever interpretation you favor, the impact of this vanished secret is undeniable. It reminds us that history is not always what it seems, that what we see in textbooks is carefully curated, and that beneath the surface of any story, there may be hidden layers waiting to be discovered. It also raises a question we rarely ask: how much of what we think we know about our past is missing? If one secret could vanish entirely, what else has been quietly erased? What other stories have slipped through the cracks of official records, leaving only whispers and fragments for us to piece together? That's the power and the danger of secrecy. It allows events to happen out of sight, yet leaves echoes that, if we listen carefully, can tell us more than official documents ever could. And here's a chilling detail: in the decades since this secret vanished, those involved never spoke openly again. Some lived quietly, some disappeared entirely, and a few went on to positions of influence in society, carrying knowledge that shaped decisions and policies in ways most of us will never see. The story of the vanished American secret is not just about what happened in that room or that town, it's about influence, control, and the power of history itself to remember or to forget. So, what can we take away from this? First, that history is alive. It's not a static series of dates and names, it's a complex web of decisions, actions, and secrets. Second, that the most important stories are often the ones not told in classrooms or public memorials. And third, that curiosity matters. By asking questions, by digging into letters, photographs, and obscure documents, ordinary people can uncover extraordinary truths that challenge everything we think we know. As we wrap this story up, consider this: the vanished secret of America may never be fully revealed. Some records are gone forever, some witnesses are no longer with us, and some truths may remain buried for generations. But the echoes remain, the subtle signs that hint at what happened, and for those willing to look, the story is still there waiting, like a hidden thread in the fabric of history, ready to be discovered. And that, my friends, is the power of history: it's never truly gone. Secrets may vanish from official records, but curiosity keeps them alive. Every photograph, every letter, every diary entry carries a whisper of what once was. The American secret that vanished without a trace isn't just a story, it's a reminder that history has layers, and only those willing to look closely will find the truths hidden beneath the surface. So next time you walk past a quiet town, or flip through old photographs, or stumble upon a faded letter, remember this story. History is never as simple as it seems, and sometimes, the most extraordinary stories are the ones that almost disappeared entirely. Keep your curiosity alive, question what you're told, and always remember, even the quietest corners of America may hide secrets that vanished without a trace. And that's the story of the American secret that vanished without a trace, a story that reminds us history is alive, mysterious, and waiting for those brave enough to uncover it.